Merry Christmas and welcome to Just a Dog Podcast, the podcast for thoughtful dog lovers and guardians. I am your host Nadine. Today I am joined by Dr. Marc Abraham. Marc is a Brighton-based veterinary surgeon, broadcaster, author and animal welfare campaigner. Alongside his clinical work, he has spent more than a decade proving that sustained grassroots campaigning can change the law. The story begins in 2009 when Marc was working a night shift at an out-of-hours emergency clinic in Brighton when several very, very sick puppies arrived one after another. Many were suffering from parvovirus and all had come through a commercial third-party dealer that was linked to a puppy farm. That night made the problem impossible to ignore. It also made clear that treating individual dogs was not going to be enough. It was the system itself that needed to change. So over the next 10 years, Marc led the campaign for Lucy's Law. That law came into force in England in April 2020, banning the commercial third-party sale of puppies and kittens, meaning that people must now buy directly from a breeder or adopt from a rescue. Marc was awarded an OBE for significant services to animal welfare presented by His Majesty King Charles. The honour recognised his work in Lucy's Law, Pup Aid and his role as the co-founder and secretariat of the all-party parliamentary dog advisory welfare group. In this conversation, Marc shares the family history that shaped his refusal to give up, the creative tactics that helped a handful of grassroots campaigner outmaneuver the government and major charities, and the practical steps that anyone can take to turn outrage into action. Hey Marc, thank you so much for joining me on Just a Dog podcast. I'm happy to have you here.
Thank you for inviting me on, Nadine. It's an honour to be on your podcast.
So I've listened to a bunch of podcasts that you've been on. I've read your books, and I find it really interesting how you had an interest in reptiles and small animals from a really young age. But how did your journey with dogs specifically begin?
I've always loved animals. I've never had a dog, confession.
No?
And I will do one day when I have a lifestyle that can accommodate one or two. I don't know. I mean, my love for reptiles, I had a pet tortoise, which obviously got me into helping animals because I took a maggot out of the leg. And it's something that my mum keeps reminding me. And the tortoise had a wound on its leg. I think I was 3. I took the maggot out with a twig, cleaned the leg up. The leg got better, tortoise got better, just wanted to help animals. So I'm one of those annoying people that actually knew what they wanted to do from a very young age. And I just had to do it, which turned me into a kind of a nerd geek square for all of my young life until I went to uni and learnt what going out was and drinking alcohol was and going to parties. Being invited to parties was a big deal. It never happened in my teenage years. And my best friends growing up were frog spawn and broken eggshells and capital cities, and as in learning them, not visiting them. And I was an information hoarder. So I always loved animals. And then I think campaigning for dog welfare happened in 2009 when I saw puppies coming in with horrible disease called parvovirus, which is often from sort of questionable sources where they're bred, puppy farms. And it was the injustice of these young families buying these dogs and then being left with huge vet bills or even dead puppies that I just chose to do something about. And I always say with campaigning, anyone can make a difference and campaign and either start a campaign or join the campaign. They've just got to care enough to get involved. And I cared enough to get involved in that instant. So it was the injustice towards dogs and humans. And then I guess in my blood, I've got a kind of a campaigner DNA anyway, because as you know, my grandma escaped from the Holocaust and she arrived in the UK with the kinder transport, and her story is nothing short of remarkable about sort of being sent to Auschwitz with her parents and then ducking under the barriers at Leipzig train station, finding a Red Cross uniform from a fancy dress shop, coming back to the station and pretending to be a nurse to evacuate the 10,000 kids. So she said that anything's possible and never give up. So when you've got that in your brain, plus a sense of injustice, plus my dad was in advertising, so I guess campaigning and creative and imagination was quite involved in my childhood, sitting, literally looking through books of brands. Fascinated, copying them out, drawing. I draw. My dad was an artist as well. The power of branding, weirdly, was so obsessive for me, and also a history of art. I used to read books. I'm named after Marc Chagall. So there was a real melting pot of sort of survivor, campaigner, marketing, branding, creative, science, and I think it all sort of came together and turned me into someone that can campaign and hopefully change the world for the better, for mainly for animals, but it's becoming more about humans as well. The longer the journey continues.
I feel like having injustice as a core driver, in order to identify with that feeling, you might have experienced injustice within your own life at some point to be able to connect to that part of you. Could you share an experience that fuels that drive?
I think being Jewish, anti-Semitism, you've grown up with it, and you've grown up kind of feeling like the underdog. So you're naturally then more empathetic to other underdogs and injustices. I mean, I'm pretty much an atheist. I'm not a practicing Jew at all. But there is an identity there. And especially in the last 2 years, it's been quite difficult with a lot of anti-Semitic sort of social media activity, stuff in the news. And it does make you feel vulnerable, and it does make you connect more with your own, feeling a bit of an imposter because I don't sort of practice. So all of a sudden I'm like, hi, I'm one of you. But it's the vulnerability. And I broke my ribs a few years ago at my 50th.
Oh, there's a story there.
Flashback 2 minutes before the end. And it's a bit like when I was filming the documentary, which we'll talk about obviously, because it's an invisible illness and so painful. Anyone who's broken their ribs will know how painful it is. It made me realize, obviously, that anti-Semitism is like an emotional vulnerability, mental vulnerability, but as a physical vulnerability, when you've got broken ribs, no one knows, but you're like, no one come near me. And you suddenly, as a 6'3" guy who's never really had any problems health wise, to suddenly be vulnerable and suddenly realize how old people feel, how disabled people may feel permanently. This is obviously a temporary thing with broken ribs. So I think it's important in life to realize the vulnerabilities that we all have. And certainly the stuff I do in Westminster at the moment, we did one this week about assistance dogs and disability rights, and about how disabled people are treated. You know, you don't look disabled, was a common thing that maybe taxis say or supermarkets say. And I think the older we get, the more, hopefully, the more understanding and more sympathetic we become. But it doesn't do any harm to keep reminding people to sometimes sort of take a deep breath, take a step back, pause, before commonly these days we launch into attacks or social media trolls or just nastiness for no reason. I think with time and, as I say, with age, we strive to be better people. But it's certainly the last few years, with the ribs as a physical thing and the anti-Semitism as an emotional thing, it does make you feel vulnerable where you didn't before, and that I think makes us, if you're open-minded enough, realize how other people are suffering all the time, or maybe they've got a more visible trigger for people to attack or to discriminate.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's all. I mean, everything's underpinned by kindness. I think it's made me more kind and more patient with people around me.
Yeah, it's the same thing with dogs, isn't it? There's so much we don't see. It's not like they can say, excuse me, my ribs are broken, you know? So, yeah, once you've experienced something, you know, but there's a lot that until you experience something, you don't know. Somewhat shared experience we've both had is the loss of our fathers. But it's really hard to communicate the feeling of that depth of loss unless you've actually experienced it yourself.
100%. We had amazing speakers, but we had Lucy Edwards, who's a very famous blind disability activist. She's the model for Pan 10. She's got a guide dog called Miss Molly. And she's so eloquent. She said when she started her talk on Tuesday in Parliament, she was like, 1 minute I'm filming this amazing advert with everyone running around and I'm the celebrity. The next minute I'm trying to get an Uber home and no one's stopping. And it was an amazing insight into the discrimination that disabled people feel, experience, blind people experience, people with assistance dogs experience. And we can all do better. And it was about restaurants, and it was about taxis, and it was about Ubers, and it was about airlines, and how the culture needs to change. And we can all play a part in that. And certainly we're going to be working together at potentially influencing legislation. I mean, she's got such an incredible fan base that for that, with campaigning tools, is insane. for someone like me as a grassroots campaigner, it's like, hello, we can provide what you can't and you can provide what we can't. Perfect collaboration. She's really up for it. So a lot of the campaigning is sort of finding like-minded people that can help sort of push things along and get results for both, in this case, for both humans and assistance dogs. But yeah, the Dead Parent Club doesn't exist until you become a part of it. And then everyone's incredibly sympathetic. There's also the sort of the Dead Parent Cancer Club, where everyone wants to help. Everyone is available to hear and listen and message or call. And it's obviously nothing you've ever experienced, as you quite rightly say, until you've experienced it. And I think when you get into your 40s and 50s, it's more likely to happen if it hasn't happened already. And also you're there for your friends for when it happens to them. I was one of the first to have a dead parent. So it's so funny because when it happens to you, you're one of the first, not that people don't care, but
they don't have
that level of, oh, it must be awful, so sorry if you're lost, all the normal stuff, which is fine, obviously, and lovely. But as soon as someone has experienced, oh, it's a game changer, and it's a support network. Yeah, very lucky to have my friends and family around me. And also, I feel privileged to be in a position now to help others who've gone through similar things in the last 10 years since my dad passed. Yeah.
Has it been 10 years?
10 years on next April the 4th. But it feels like yesterday, as I'm sure it does for you. But again, it's underpinned by kindness. And I think kindness is the thing that really helps everything get better. And I think everyone could do with, most people are kind. But there are instances you see opportunities for kindness missed. When I do my school visits, which are called Furry Friends and Feelings, it's all about kindness. And it's all about not just kindness. Be kind to each other, be kind to your teachers, your parents, yourselves, animals, obviously, and kind of the world is a lot better for it.
Absolutely. Sometimes we say these things like be kind, be happy, be whatever, but what's missing is the practical application of it. What does that actually look like to kids? How would you communicate that to them in terms of dogs specifically?
So the lesson plan briefly is, because they don't know me and I'm sitting in front of a load of 20 or 30 4-year-olds, 5-year-olds, 6-year-olds, 7-year-olds, 8-year-olds. That's the sort of primary school age range. We start with a game where they have to guess what the baby animal turns into. It's laminated cards. So we start with basically going, what are these animals going to be? And there's a fox carp, or there's a dragonfly larvae, there's a flamingo that's grey and a baby because they haven't eaten the shrimp yet. So everything has a little bit of a backstory, tadpole, caterpillar. So there's loads of them. And that gets, because they love games, that gets them to sort of trust me, gets them all excited. And then the last one, spoiler alert, is a baby hedgehog, which turns over and it's a hedgehog with a bandage on its leg. So then we turn into, how did we know that hedgehog had a bad leg? Limping, crying, bleeding, whatever. What other symptoms of ill health are there? Someone always coughs at that point. Unbelievable. Thank you. You're right. Cough. And then sneezing. So that's sort of visible problems. And then we talk about invisible problems, and someone will say cancer and someone will say virus. And then we talk about, what about in your brain? Someone will always say headache at that point. What else? What about mental? And they go, health, health, health. What's mental health? And we go round, it's fascinating. And they all know mental health, but when they try and describe it, it's incredible. So we talk about their mental health, why it's important and what we can do to protect it. And then we talk about animals' mental health and how kindness can improve and affect animals' mental health. So that's a really good one. And then we talk about dog bites and muzzles and asking the owner and holding your hand out and all that sort of stuff. And then I have a bag of tricks from the surgery, which they have to guess what they're all used for. And we get to them every time, even whelping forceps, stethoscope. And at the end, we do a little bit of Q&A. Depending on the year, we may do fireworks or Halloween, dressing pets up. Obviously, not recommended. Local wildlife like the starling murmuration on the Brighton Pier, dogs boring livestock on the South Downs. So we can apply it, summer dangers, winter dangers. And then it's an hour's up, and it's totally interactive, so hopefully they don't get too bored. But yeah, but you can weave kindness into any of that stuff. And a lot of it is just being kind enough to be aware of something and give it some thought, start the conversation, talk to your friends about it, alert your teacher about something else. Furry Friends and Feelings really does educate that animals have feelings and they also have mental health, and we should be protecting them as well as protecting ourselves and our friends and our teachers and our parents or our carers, everyone, the environment. And that's what I finish on. I get my OBE medal out, and the teacher's primed to have the picture of me getting the medal from Charles on the big screen. And they go, and I go, "Who's that?" And they go, "It's the king, it's the king." And I go, "Yeah, but who's that talking to me?" And they go, "Oh, hilarious." And I say, "I got this for being kind to animals, but all of you can get a medal from the king. It'll be William when it's your turn for being kind to the animals and humans or the environment or whatever. Who wants a medal from the king?" And they all lose their minds. "Who's going to promise to be kind to everything?" How's that? Losing their minds. And then as they file out, they touch the medal because the king's touched it, and it's a little connection to the king. And it's amazing, but it does resonate. And I'm lucky enough, obviously, to have a medal to do that with. But it's just another tool to show how kindness is rewarded, and they all promise to be kind.
I love that. Start them young.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the animal abuse and human abuse and just nastiness in the world can, to some degree, be prevented or at least slowed down at that young age, where you do emphasize the importance of kindness and empathy and compassion and use examples of why it's a good thing and it should be celebrated and engaged with and promoted and shared.
Yeah, I agree. I was speaking to Les from the IAWPC a couple of weeks ago, and he was telling me about how Morocco, there's a lot of issues at the moment with the killing of dogs in preparation for FIFA World Cup in 2030.
Yeah.
And they were sharing about children and their exposure to such horrific violence and how that kind of desensitizes them at a very young age. So I think education is really important, and I love that you do that here in the UK. It would be amazing to have more people teach the softer skills.
100%. And there is a sort of a collaboration of big charities, and I have approached them and said, "Look, use my lesson plan. Any help I can give, because it should be taught in the curriculum, fair enough. But in the meantime, which is probably unlikely to happen, we can all do it. So any vets, any vet nurses, any rescue shelter staff, dog behaviourists, anyone who has a career that involves animals can do an hour a year, let's say, into a local primary school, Cub Scout group, Girl Guides, anyone who can be shaped and influenced at a young age to be kind to animals. It doesn't have to be a vet. It's just a case of, again, caring enough to want to do it. And it can only, if you're worried about, "Oh, it's an hour out of my day, it's an hour, I can't make any money in my business," it couldn't benefit your business more to be seen as a key opinion leader in your community who's kind and gets on with animals and children. Are you kidding me? It's can really help. Not that I do it for this reason, because I don't own this practice, but it can really help bring business in, because most people who own animals have families or know people who have families. So why not go to the local vet or use that behaviourist or that boarding kennels, because they go to local schools? It's so obvious. It
Yeah.
really is obvious. And it annoys me a little bit because I don't understand why there's, as you say, there's not more people doing it. And it's really enjoyable. It's really fun to have all these kids in front of you and little jokes and little comments. And it's like you do come away feeling energized. And also knowing that there's going to be one in there that takes this seriously, or one that wants to become a vet or a vet nurse or someone involved with animals. And it is inspirational for them because all of a sudden they see someone different than their teacher. And they tend to pay a little bit more attention when it's a stranger coming in rather than the same old teacher. But yeah, my motto really in the last few years has been, if you can, why wouldn't you? And that, I mean, that keeps my diary pretty full. But I do think, if while you can and you're able, why wouldn't you? I mean, Peter Egan, who most people will be aware of, actor, animal rights activist, he's the same as me. If he can help something, he will be there. And he's more active than me, and he's 80 next year, and I genuinely don't know how he does it. But he does, and he does it because he cares enough to get involved. And hopefully that inspires people to also come out and help when they can.
I think I heard somewhere Peter Egan is like your surrogate dad. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, He really is. And the weirdest coincidence, he gave my parents a lift home from Westminster once, back in the early days of campaigning. And it turns out my dad was in advertising, as I mentioned. Peter Egan did a lot of voiceovers in the 80s, and they actually established that they worked together. And then my dad died in 2016, and they were always very matey, kind of a similar culture in the 80s, advertising and things like that. And then Peter, because he's got a stepdaughter, he hasn't got a son. And because we had such a strong bond and we were kind of doing all the same dog shows and stuff together, we became a father-son kind of duo. And we have that relationship. We speak every week. We're there for each other, especially when his wife Myra sadly passed. I was there for him, and we have so much fun together, as well as obviously the serious campaigning side.
It's wonderful that you have him. Thinking about your dad, like my journey with the podcast and everything to do with dogs came from the loss of my dad and reflecting on legacy and what can I dedicate my life to quite comfortably, consistently, and make an impact. And so his legacy inspired my attempt at legacy. So what do you think your dad's legacy was, and what would be yours?
Well, he kind of, along with my mum, who is a phenomenal communicator and does not miss an opportunity to make money for charity, to network, and to make the world a better place. And my dad, as I mentioned, he was in advertising, so he had a campaigning brain. He was a creative. He came up with some incredible, iconic adverts, commercials of our time, and brands, both here and overseas. So I kind of, from him, and I'm very similar personality-wise to him. And then, honestly, the mixture of my mum's properties and qualities and my dad's has totally made who I am, which is unsurprising genetically. But when you look back as an adult and you go, okay, that makes sense. Things kind of make more sense the older you get. Um, so yeah, my legacy from him is being able to run campaigns, and hopefully successfully. And whereas advertising, you're using your resources to reach a lot of people and get them to do something, buy something. Grassroots campaigning is using your resources to usually zero. But that's why creativity and imagination is such a force in grassroots campaigning, to get noticed, to get a lot of people to do something, a call to action, which is often sign and share a petition, contact your MP. They're simple things, but the two ways of doing it are unbelievably similar. And as I say, creativity and imagination to get noticed. We still see. There you go. It's an all right book.
It's a great book, and there's a lot of
It's a great
crossover,
book.
as you say,
Great book.
between advertising, marketing. I'm a marketer, my background is marketing. And
There
as
you
I
go.
was reading this book, I was like, this campaigning is marketing.
Yeah, it's without a budget. And it's amazing what you can achieve with literally zero money. I mean, we made, or minimal money. I mean, some of the greatest things we'd ever did on the campaign trail. I say we were a coalition of grassroots campaigners who got Lucy's Law over the line. There was 5 or 6 of us, different parts of the country. This was before WhatsApp, really, before Instagram. And we had Linda and Sue in Wales. We had Julia in Folkestone. We had Philippa, who sadly passed away also in 2016, cancer, and in later years, Sarah and Redditch. That was it. And we were against the pet industry, we were against the government, and we were campaigning against the 4 biggest animal welfare charities in the UK, believe it or not. Well, you do believe it because you've read it. But we outmaneuvered and navigated them all just by being very, very patient. Chess, I played a lot with my dad. That definitely develops a young brain into strategy, playing the long game, anticipating the next move of your opponent. But for example, Mother's Day at Crufts one year, we made this 3 meter high, 2 meter across Mother's Day card. On Sunday, which is obviously best in show, had a picture of Lucy in the middle, and it said, Happy Mother's Day, question mark, about the breeding dogs. And that attracted media, that attracted Channel 4. And the item they put was on just before Best in Show with a band. Claire Balding talked about the petition, which was live at the time. Got about 20,000 signatures in an hour, which is mad to watch. But it was a relatively inexpensive banner. And the next year, because we wanted to change the law in Wales. We knew that the Welsh Springers would be coming, 150 of them, 75 dogs, 75 bitches. So I contacted the breed clubs. I said, look, can they wear a Lucy's Law rosette and a Welsh flag bandana, and then do a flash mob between the judging, between the males and the females? Yeah, okay. So there's this 150, this picture's still online because it got quite a bit of media coverage. 150 dogs wearing the Lucy's Law rosette and the Welsh flag bandana, just all lined up at Crufts. And that was enough to trigger the Welsh government for the consultation for Lucy's Law in Wales. So there's so much we can do. I mean, Pup Aid as well. Pup Aid was the big dog show. It started in Brighton, went to Primrose Hill. Again, celebrities judging dogs. It became massive. Ricky Gervais came, Brian May came, all these celebrities, reality stars, Sue Perkins, Rachel Riley, Elle Macpherson, because they just like dogs and they just wanted to be part of change. That cost a fortune to put on, obviously from sponsorship, wasn't from our money, but it just shows if you have in marketing, tone is everything. If you have the right tone and the right message and you have a solution, always helps with campaigning, people can get on board because it's something that they can't do, but they trust you to do it, and they also look good in the process. It's always two-way. Same with MPs. You want their help, but you are making them look good and compassionate and kind at the same time, and you just get on with it. And it's amazing over the years, I think back about some of the campaigns we've run, how they've been picked up and how they've been noticed. I mean, my first ever animal welfare campaign was Where's Mum? #Where's Mum? To obviously empower prospective dog owners to go and ask for mum. And that got picked up by Channel 5, and we got sort of Meg Matthews and Anais Gallagher as a Where's Mum couple. And at the time, there was Debbie and Lydia from Towie as a mum couple. We were, Anais and Meg were in the Mail Online, and Debbie and Lydia were Channel 5 with one of the Gabbies on her show. And it just shows how you can campaign with very simple tools, but become very inviting for celebrities are everything, as you know, with marketing and advertising. Celebrity endorsement means obviously that celebrity thinks you're okay, and the cooler ones and the bigger the ones, the better. Mm-hmm. But also you have their reach of their social networks, which these days is even more important. So we've always been inclusive with all our campaigns. We've always said anyone can get involved, and it works. And there's a template, which isn't rocket science, and it's certainly nothing I've come up with. But there's a certain toolkit that if you apply to anything you want to change, and I always advise you have a solution, because otherwise you're just someone that's complaining about something, especially when you're campaigning in Parliament. Have a solution that's worked out, that's relatively inexpensive, and that's cross-party, and that's legislatively, see, I still can't do this bloody word. It's enforceable, and it can be spelled out in legislation. Yeah, there's ways of doing stuff.
Cross-party, you said. What does that mean?
Cross-party means support from all the parties.
Right.
So Conservatives and Labour and maybe even Reform, Lib Dem and Green. I mean, it doesn't have to be all of them, but when government is considering new legislation and you have cross-party support and you have support from the major stakeholders, which in our industry is usually the big charities, it's okay for them to pass it. It's less controversial. They call it consensus. If you have a piece of proposed legislation that only Conservatives are backing, or 3 out of the 4 biggest animal welfare charities in the UK, for example, greyhound racing, backing, the government won't do anything. It's unlikely, because if their mindset is, well, if you lot can't decide what the right thing to do is, how are we meant to? And I get it. So consensus, whether it's the stakeholders, cross-party in Westminster, celebrities always help. You're basically surrounding the chief decision maker with everyone saying, and the petition, so the public, with everyone saying, you need to do this solution. And it's very hard for them to then to back out. It's very easy when you don't get consensus in any of those things. So it's kind of an ambush of the chief decision maker, which is how we did Lucy's Law, really.
How do you get consensus without diluting or changing your overall message, especially when other parties have maybe different values and priorities?
First of all, you don't compromise. Second of all, you create a fear of missing out, which I think is really important power. And that includes having Ricky Gervais on board, having Diane Morgan or having Rachel Riley on board, having cool celebrities. Because if they're involved, it's very hard for either stakeholders or parliamentarians to go, we don't want to get involved with anything Ricky's involved with. You're mental. So that's important. And as I say, it's like an ambush. You not just about the chief decision maker, but you also provide such a momentum that's inclusive to everyone. That's basically, you can come in if you like, and we'd love your support. If you have to think about it, if you have to maybe ask your supporters, fine. But we're going to kind of do it anyway. And you don't really want to be left on the shelf when we cross the line and pass the law and everyone's celebrating and your supporters are going, why weren't you a part of this?
Yeah.
So it's a kind of a manipulative thought process, but it's only to create good stuff. So yeah, there's a lot of psychology involved with campaigning, which I never really knew about because I hadn't done it before. But it becomes obvious the more you do it. And also you have, exactly, marketing. And also you have to be prepared to fail because that just makes your campaign stronger. It actually makes you stop, reassess, and come back after you've spoken and to a few other people, parliamentarians. I mean, we kept failing. We lost our first ever e-petition. A lot of people, I think, would have given up. But when it's about animals, you can't, because if you give up, no one's going to carry it on. The select committee inquiry, which is when MPs go and look at a puppy farm, for example, and have an inquiry in Westminster with people giving evidence. That was the turning point for Parliament to get on board. And then they recommend to the government to pass Lucy's Law, which is a ban on commercial sale of puppies and kittens in pet stores and other third parties, now known as Lucy's Law. And the government rejected the select committee recommendation, which was unheard of. And then we found out there were charities behind that who were sabotaging. So that's why we set up the all-party parliamentary group to expose those charities in a room full of campaigners and journalists, which worked, thank God. That's the last throw of the dice. So there are ways of doing it. And again, the grandma's mantra of anything's possible and never give up. And I remember standing, Westminster Bridge, you've got the Lords, the Commons, Big Ben, Portcullis House, Downing Street behind, thinking, what am I doing here? Like proper imposter syndrome, which kind of has never left me, which I like. It's got better because I go there so much and do so much there. But I love the feeling of being a science nerd who did biology, chemistry and physics, and I'm a vet. And all of a sudden, I'm attending Parliament and speaking in Parliament, which I'd love now. I mean, I was terrified to speak to humans, let alone a room full of them when I was growing up, as most people are. But repetition and the stuff I do and you're passionate about, and I did a lot of live TV and Paul O'Grady, absolutely terrifying. But the feeling of educating viewers and the difference that can make to their animals was much more important than how I felt and my own social anxieties by going on live TV to a studio audience and 5 million viewers. So I say this in my senior school visits, secondary school visits, is, when you are planning a career, as well as being kind and be prepared to be out of your comfort zone, and who knows what will come from it. And I think if I hadn't done all that, I wouldn't be sitting here now telling you about changing laws or campaigning or helping animals and humans. But again, with campaigning, with marketing, any of these activities, it's about seeing the opportunity or creating the opportunity and just not missing that opportunity and maximizing the opportunity. And they're everywhere, opportunities. Even talking to someone at the bus stop about something you're passionate about is an opportunity. So I'm happy to just be in this unbelievably privileged position now, and in Westminster and in my consulting room to make a difference, whether it's vaccinating a puppy or chairing a meeting of 200 people in the biggest committee room. I love the feeling of making a difference, and it's certainly changed my life. From not being from a political background, hopefully it's shown others that anyone can do this. You just have to care enough about it to want to get involved. But that's why I wrote that book, because it's a handbook for anyone to pick up and go, I can sit on the toilet and share a petition. That's making a difference. Yeah. Or you can do the whole leader campaign, change the law. But there's something for everyone along that whole spectrum.
Absolutely.
And I encourage people to do it because it does make you feel good too. Not the reason I do it, but it's a side effect.
This is the thing though, isn't it? Especially online, we get exposed to a lot of things, and there's a lot happening in the world as well. It's quite easy if you're looking to feel any sense of rage, you will quickly find it in many places online. But the key difference, I think, that you taught me actually is not just to complain, but to do something about it and to present a solution,
Yeah.
because without the solution, you're just complaining. So I would like to, because we're kind of running out of time and I still want to go on to Dogspiracy,
Oh,
but
yeah.
if you can just tell me
Mental.
that, I know there's so much to cover. Tell people who are infuriated by something, whether it's the noise of the fireworks or hare coursing, fox hunting, whatever it is, if they feel enraged enough to do something, what is the first 3 steps to get
Oh,
started?
I think research what's already been done or what is being done, and whether there is a solution already put forward. And then I guess the next two would be to meet your local MP, which is easy. And if you don't live in London, they'll do what's called a surgery on a Friday or a Saturday, sometimes both, in their constituency. So you can book an appointment and just chat with them. And if they can't help you, they'll know someone that can. And also, it will make you feel better that you've raised it with a parliamentarian. And then, of course, if you have a solution and you have backing from your MP or other MPs or stakeholders, then consider doing an e-petition. But don't do a change.org. If you want to change the law and make a difference, do a government e-petition. 10,000 signatures gives you an official response, which is normally everything's fine, leave us alone. But sometimes it gives you even more tools to take to the next level. 100,000 gets you a debate in Parliament, which is an amazing achievement. I'm not just
Which
saying
you've
because I've
done
done it.
before.
Yeah, I've done 3 times. It's an amazing achievement in terms of campaigning, not necessarily personally, because what that does, obviously, it gets MPs and ministers talking about it, discussing the solution, talking about their own experiences, representing their constituents, being there in the chamber, usually Westminster Hall, not the main chamber. But what debating does is it gets the briefings from anyone that's opposing you sent to the MPs to read out. And that's where the real campaigning starts. So I say it's an incredible achievement because all of a sudden you've got all the reasons, and you've made excellent friends with MPs, maybe even your local one can do this, and they'll share the briefings coming in from the opposing stakeholders. So then you start picking them apart, having more meetings with the ministers, and going, actually, they've written that's absolute rubbish. They've written that down, that's just lies. So you can start making actual progress on the pushback. And it's usually a vested interest, usually an ego, usually an economical reason why what you want can't go ahead. But it can all be easily overcome, because if a big celebrity is on your side and you've got a solution and you've got cross-party support and all the other stakeholders are saying yes, you'll probably get it. But
Yeah.
it's a case of sort of being the sheepdog, dog related, rounding everyone up, and never used this analogy before, rounding everyone up so they're kind of all facing the right way. And that's when you're more likely, I'm never going to say you're definitely going to get what you want, but you're more likely to get it. And if you don't, it's up to you to then find out why and unravel those and then go again. So it's almost like waves of campaigning. This is what we did for Lucy's Law, which is why it took 10 years. But anything's possible. And, do what's right. That's kind of, Martin Luther King quote, the arc of the moral universe always bends towards justice, which is true. The world should become a better place. And it's up to us who care about stuff enough to speed that up, and we can all do it. The tools
Yeah.
are there. Most of them are free. As I say, you can just sit on the loo and share a petition link. But
Exactly.
that's the basic stuff, or you can become more involved and more invested in campaign or campaigns. But we can all do something. So instead of moaning and finger pointing and blaming or just not doing anything at all, turn that energy into something, and feel empowered with the fact that anyone can make a difference, even this idiot who had no background. But you can do it. If you don't think something's, as you say, they say it on the train platform. Say it, see it, sort it. If you see something that's suspicious, do something about it. It's the same thing, but you have to do that thing. There's some great sort of inspirational quotes. The Gandhi quote, you judge a nation on how it treats its animals, is basically a metaphor for how a government treats its most vulnerable. That's how I interpret it. And it's such a powerful quote, and it's true. So when you see the two-child cap or the old people who can't afford to heat their houses or disability cuts, it's a message to the country of how the vulnerable are being treated by the government. And that, for me, is the Gandhi quote. And that's why you have such uproar when whichever government makes these decisions that it negatively impacts the most vulnerable, because we're all feeling vulnerable in all different ways. Again, these are huge opportunities that are being missed to protect the vulnerable, to look after the vulnerable, to honor the vulnerable. And you think, really, when you watch the news sometimes, it's like sort of a proper eye roll. But politicians will do what they need to do, and they suffer the consequences when they do something that isn't popular and they don't get voted in. That's called a democracy. But it's very, I mean, they are campaigners as well, politicians.
Yeah.
They're all campaigners. They all want to make positive change. Some are better than others, and some are definitely more empathetic than others. And some like animals more than people. Some like people more than animals. Most of them like both. But again, as campaigners, it's important to sort of corral them into your campaigns. And so we have drop-ins in Westminster where they come in and hold placards, which are hugely popular because it's an opportunity for them to show that they actually care about animals or people or everything.
True. You said something about rallying the troops, herding the people, facing the same direction. But not everyone has access to celebrities on speed dial. So how does a regular person get their attention?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't have access to anyone. I remember one of my first ever locum jobs, spending hours a day just emailing agents, managers. This was before Instagram, before Twitter, kind of before any of that. Celebrities were still untouchable in that world. And I'm talking maybe 15 years ago. You'll get a bite at some point, and no disrespect to celebrities, but the sort of the lower down the list of how famous they are more likely to have the time, let's say, to come to something you're organising. So celebrity judge dog show, for example. And then you just build on that. You make a big fuss of them and you fear of missing out again. And then the next year you approach others and say, well, last year these guys came, is there any chance you could come to this one? And you just build on that. And then, you go to places where they're going to be. I don't mean like a stalker, but you go to dog shows that are like charity dog shows where they have celebrity supporters. And I think that's probably where I met Peter Egan the first time. And you meet other people and they know other people. And if one celebrity is doing something, fear of missing out, the other celebrity friends will probably want to do it too. And it kind of builds and builds and builds. And sometimes you can have a sympathetic PR company that has celebrity contacts and will help pro bono and bring some themselves. We've never paid anyone to be anywhere because we believe that kindness will sort of make them come rather than money. And it's built from there. I mean, I didn't know anyone.
I think you've just listed all of Cialdini's principles for influence. I don't know if you've ever read that book, but yeah, anyways, check it out if you want to do grassroots campaigning. You've just recently been to New York and Philadelphia, I think it was. Please talk me through what happened. And yeah, just tell us a little bit more about Dogspiracy. I've obviously seen it. I would love to say that I loved it. I love the creative aspect of it. But yeah, the message is quite powerful. So talk us through.
Approached before lockdown by a production company and a director who wanted to make a show about dogs. Weirdly, it was about dogs in the royal family or something. Bit weird, bit niche. And they sent me the treatment, which is, as you know, it's a one-page synopsis of the show. And at the time, I was like a talking head, just like a little contributor. And I just said, look, no disrespect, but we could make something really big here that can change the world for dogs rather than talk about dogs in royal families. And they said, what do you mean? So I rewrote the treatment, put myself in as presenter, because I said, otherwise I'm going to have to tell the presenter what to say. They're based in Prague. I came to Brighton, had a cup of tea on the pier, beautiful sunny day. I think that helped. And I said, look, I can get you all the access. I can get you parliamentarians here. I was already working with Grace in Pennsylvania and her Finding Shelter, which she rescues dogs from the Amish puppy mills. rewrote the ARCs, so campaigning, irresponsible breeding and selling of puppies, and rescue, promoting rescue. And they were like, okay. I was like, right. So we called it Dogspiracy, and got to work. And then it was about 5 years in the making, 2 years filming, and now I have a movie that I've presented and narrated and kind of co-produced, which is really exciting because it's about puppy mills, it's about responsible breeding, and it's about promoting rescue, and it's about how to campaign and how frustrating it is and what work still needs completing. One of them is Victoria's law, which is the ban of puppies sold in pet shops in Pennsylvania, which now, after my visit to Harrisburg, which is the state capital of Pennsylvania, looks much more likely, not just because of me, but the fear of the documentary coming out, it's not out there yet, is already making parliamentarians, senators, state reps panic. Fear of humiliation. It's another good one with MPs. So yeah, it's kind of doing its job, because I wrote the Victoria's Law arc in specifically because after 9 years of campaigning, 6 when we started filming, there was just block after block after block as an agriculture bill, and the fear of it coming out has now meant it's going to be presented as a consumer protection bill. And when I was over there speaking in Parliament, again, crazy, a few weeks back, the tone was very much different. It felt like a when this will happen rather than if this will happen. So I think it will happen. And also when it comes out in the States, it could even inspire other states to follow, I think the 6 or 7 that have got a pet store puppy ban. So, I mean, bonkers really, but unbelievably grateful and just overwhelmed really, where that one night seeing those puppies in my Brighton practice has ended up, and it still feels like this is the beginning of much more stuff happening with both animals and humans. I mean, the APDAWG meetings, we have one a month now. They're packed. We have the most incredible speakers. Loads more MPs come every time, and it feels like progress is being made every single meeting, and it's all about progress. And if I hadn't called the book Be More Mosquito, which is basically a reference to the Dalai Lama quote, if you think you're too small to make a difference, try sleeping with a mosquito, I would have probably called it making progress, because progress is what drives me and it drives all campaigners. And it means that things are getting better. And I'm a broken record, but we can all play a part in making things better, making that curve faster, curve towards justice. I mean, funny enough, all the quotes, they all kind of say the same thing. It's basically inspiring you to get involved and to be a part of the solution. It's crucial, and you know, it's not a chore. It's a real fun and exciting thing to do, and leads you to all sorts of places and meet interesting people.
Yeah.
So yeah, it blows my mind where we've come and all the people that I've met. But I know that there's still so much more that needs to be achieved. But at least when you've got this momentum and got parliamentarians and celebrities kind of part of your army, you can look forward to a much brighter future for both humans and dogs.
Yeah. And you know all these things because you didn't give up. Lucy's Law took 10 years for legislation to change,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah. How did you keep going? Internal drive, your why?
Yeah,
Like,
internal drive, and the fact that if you don't do it, then who else is going to do it? And also, I always use this analogy that, remember on shows like Homeland or 24, and they used to burst into the criminal's back room, and on the wall was like post-it notes and newspaper articles and string and pins and all that. That's the campaigner's brain. You know, you can remember what someone said in Parliament in a speech. You can remember the name of the dog of a celebrity. It's all pieced together by string. And when you've been doing it a while, there's no way you can ever explain that wall to anyone else. So you can't give up, because you've kind of got this mad, crazy wall of stuff in your head, which you know can make a difference and will be part of that solution. So you've gone too far. You could give up, but I think anyone who cares enough, it's the last thing they'd even consider.
I agree.
Yeah. And then my next project, which is going to be out in May, is my 5th book, which is a children's picture book, which is an anti-bullying, anti-racism, inclusivity text, and it's called Leon's Reef. And funny enough, I think it could be the thing that I'm most proud of. It's about symbiotic relationships on the reef, and it's about looking different but depending on each other for survival. So that comes out in May. It's being drawn at the moment. I've got an amazing publisher called Award Publications. I wrote it 17 years ago, and I pitched it to so many publishers. Everyone said no because it rhymed, and rhyming can't be translated. So essentially the text is useless. Over lockdown, I worked with a proper children's picture book editor, tightened it up, made it a lot more powerful. Bam, publisher. So again, didn't give up, but I knew when it was rejected the first time, it just wasn't right. So a lot of this is about patience and waiting for the planets to align. Lucy's Law was a bit like that. Michael Gove, if he wasn't Secretary of State for DEFRA, may not have passed it because he's a dog lover and a cat lover. So that's another thing. You've just got to keep going and believe that at some point it will happen, because it will. If it's the right thing to do, it will happen. And also, the more you're in Westminster, for example, the more you're seen, the more people take you seriously. And I remember going in nearly every day at some point, and people like, you're here more than the MPs, or and it's like that level of commitment to be visible helps, because I live in Brighton and it's only an hour away. But to be visibly seen, to be attending and in meetings and really working hard and having a really simple solution to work towards that's able to be fulfilled by legislation without trying to say the word that keeps tripping me out, and is relatively inexpensive, if not free, people go, okay, we can do that. And it makes us look good too as a government. It's the other thing. Everything's two-way. Everything's two-way. We need their help, but our help benefits their brand, their image. And branding is everything, as you know, especially these days. With an attention span of less than 1 second for most people, branding, how you know this obviously, but how you communicate with the world, often people don't give it more than a second. And if you're a kind, compassionate, empathetic brand that's recognizable that quickly, you'll probably be all right. Going back to reading through the brand books, logos, absolutely fascinating. How one logo can trigger a certain emotional reaction. And obviously a successful brand triggers a much more positive one. So yeah, there's a lot going on. I guess what underpins everything is just kindness to everything and everyone, but also that anything is possible. And if an idiot like this can change laws and can work with Ricky Gervais and can get a medal from the King, then anyone can do anything. And I look forward to watching everyone now, either hiding in a cave or going out there and literally just trying to do stuff. And that's what it's all about, caring enough to want to try and do stuff. Just do it. I think you'll be pleasantly surprised, how many other people are thinking the same thing. And social media is great for that, to find out whether it's in this country or your town or a different country, how many people are doing what you want to do. And everyone's usually quite collaborative and respectful, a bit like the Dead Parent Club. Everyone wants to help because you've got a common cause, common thing that links you, common brand, if you like. But yeah, change is out there and it's for the taking, and the whole world benefits. And I think in a world of such polarized views and opinions and a lot of nastiness, why not try to establish some beacon of hope, of positivity, and of improved life for animals, humans, the environment, anything, preferably everything.
Leave the world better than you found it.
Right?
Exactly.
Why wouldn't you?
Well, you're doing a great job at that. Thank you so much, Mark.
I'm trying. I'm very pleased to be a small part. I said earlier, if you can help, why wouldn't you help? So yeah, just get on with it. It's fun.
Get on with it. Good. All right. Well, I'll let you go because I know that the room is required.
I know I'm going to be kicked out by one of my nurses in a sec. Yeah, I've loved talking to you. Thanks for inviting me on, and maybe we can have a catch up in the new year.
And when your book becomes available, I'll be your first. Oh, customer.
Bless you. Yeah, I mean, I was terrible at English at school. Written 5 books now. Right?
Amazing. Yeah.
So yeah, just get on with it and do it and surprise yourself.
Thank you so much, Mark. Have a good one.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.